Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Neptune Sextile or trine one's natal north node. Well, this transit may manifest in dreams, inspiration, idealism, sacrifice, and fantasizing. Could be in harmony with one's future and destiny. Now, I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. This could be a time with your dreams, for your future at this time. Maybe idealistic but not unrealistic. They can be more attainable. You're talking about, good relationship in aspect from transit Neptune to the natal north node. This is a time where you could have that right amount of inspiration in terms of attaining, one's future and destiny. If the natal north node is in Aquarius, as an example, that future and destiny may be tied into astrology or astronomy or computers or innovation. It could be associated with humanitarianism, as another example. It can be a time, when this transit does take place, too, when that people, if you're a spiritual person, it could be a time, where spirituality, has a good blending, with what you want to do for your future, where you feel you're destined toward. If you're, someone, that is asking for guidance, spiritually, and guiding you toward where you need to be directed, this could be that time where it could be very auspicious for that. It can also be a time where you could have a good balance, of sacrificing for others and still, they're working on attaining what you feel you need to attain as far as your mission, your purpose goes at this point in time. And it's also a time, what you have, Neptune is about fantasizing. So it can be a time where you may be fantasizing about, your future, but it's still realistic and not, things that you're fantasizing about might actually be things that are attainable, that aren't insurmountable. And it's something that can be, where you're idealistic, without being unrealistic in terms of what you're aspiring to be, what you're moving toward and directed to at the time of this transit. And the thing about this too is, you look at the North Node as well. Again, the North Node is connected with what you're moving toward, what you're directed to. And it's a time where you could maybe idealize, where you're in terms of where you're going, but again, without being unrealistic. And people that are in, you could say, Neptunian fields, Neptune-related people, can be beneficial to where you're going toward at this time. And whether it's people that are involved in spirituality or meditation or even the metaphysical, which includes astrology, this is where these people can be auspicious toward where you're going to. And it could also be a time, if you're doing something, it could be where something Neptune related could be tied in to your future as well, whether it could be, again, the metaphysical, which includes astrology or chemistry, poetry, dancing, photography, anesthesiology, as some examples. Neptune is also connected with the imagination, and could be what you feel you've imagined, where you want to go. You could be in a position where you feel confident that you're directed toward that point this time, when you have this transit. And it can also be a time as well, this is about, again, Neptune being connected with sacrificing. This is the time where you could have that right balance of sacrificing for others and also focusing on developing the positive attributes of the placement. If the natal north node is in Capricorn, say, those positive attributes can be connected with structure, discipline, being responsible, consistent, ambitious, having the good powers of concentration, I would say, as well. And in being also at this time as well, when this transit does take place, it can be a time where, again, you have that right amount of inspiration in terms of, developing, the positive qualities, of the position, of the placement. And it can also be, if you have, let's say, if you have your North Node, in Gemini, in the ninth house, it could be really about developing, the positive, having more of a manifold belief system, having diversified beliefs and philosophies, being flexible in terms of your belief system. And of course, when you have that, if you have the North Node in Gemini in the ninth house, of course, you're going to have the South Node in Sagittarius in the third house, and that would be going away more from, focusing on, homing in on one certain philosophy or belief system. And this is something too, when you have this transit, it's also a time as well where you have, the ability to balance. It could be, showing compassion for others, at this time, and it's in being able to pursue, your own future. It's expressing altruism, toward others, but being able to pursue your future and being able to balance this energy at this point in time. It makes it a very positive energy for that, because you're not being, overly egocentric and focusing in on just what you want to do, but it's also about, focusing on being able to help others, sacrificing, again, expressing, altruism, expressing compassion, and it might even be forgiveness, in some cases, to others. Now, another thing, it can also be a time, in considering the North Node, can also reflect, issues that one may have to address and confront. Let's say if you have the North Node in the first or sixth house, okay, you may have to, address issues. I mean, this could be, about addressing and confronting issues, associated, physical, something on a physical level, but you would have more inspiration to do so. Neptune, again, is about inspiration. It can be a time, if you've hesitated or procrastinated on those issues, it can be a time where you have more inspiration to do something about it. And it might be, timing. Let's say if the North Node, is in Scorpio and it falls in your first or sixth house in your natal chart, it could be physical related issues, say with the colon, or the prostate, the bladder, the reproductive system, or even the urinary tract. If you have say if your natal, let's take an example where it's not health related, maybe, say if the natal North Node is in Gemini in the third house, it could be dealing with a mischievous, neighbor or a cousin or sibling, and that might be an issue you may have to address and confront, but you may be more idealistic in dealing with it and being able to resolve, feeling more confident in terms of being able to resolve the issue. Now, another way this transit could manifest, it could also be about having inspiration, which is Neptune, and it can be to pursue your mission or purpose, which is the North Node. Now, let's say, going back to the North Node in Gemini as an example, say if it's in Gemini in the 8th house, it could be manifold and diversified, which is Gemini, support, which is the 8th house. It can also be, a time or dreams, which is Neptune, to fulfill your destiny, which is the North Node. It can be an auspicious time for this. Now, let's say if the natal North Node is in the zodiac sign Cancer in the 4th house as an example, it could be nurturing, providing safety and security, which is Cancer, for your home and family members and even people you're close to home with, which is the 4th house. And another way this transit could be expressed, it could be where Neptune related people may be in more harmony and agreement with the positive attributes of the North Node placement. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, and those placement, the positive attributes of the placement you're trying to develop, and that's the North Node. Let's say, for example, if the natal North Node is in Leo in the 11th house, it could be really standing out, even dominating, which is Leo, in a group or team related matter, which is the 11th house. Now, it's also a time where it could be propitious for escaping, so to speak, which is Neptune, to learn and aspire to be what is associated with the placement. Say if the natal North Node is in Scorpio, it could be being somebody that can empower others and having more power and control in your life, being probing, going beyond the superficial and subterfuge, being able to look deep into things as some examples. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.